A beach town can be the best thing for your stress and the worst thing for your budget. So this list has one job. European places where you can still live near salt air without paying luxury coast pricing for every normal part of life. A few of these towns still show home prices that land in the same range as a starter home in a mid-sized US city, without the resort premium. You'll still need to think through residency rules, healthcare coverage, and neighborhood choice, but the numbers here make the what-if feel real. Number 10, Kavala, Greece. Kavala feels like a port city that never asked to become a lifestyle product, and that's a compliment. It sits in northern Greece on the Aegean, a couple hours east of Thessaloniki, with ferries, a working waterfront, and beaches that locals actually use on random weekdays. Housing here isn't the rock-bottom deal it used to be, but it still stays saner than the Greek islands people name-drop at dinner parties. For a clean benchmark, typical home pricing across the broader Kavala area sits around $2,193 per square foot. That puts a modest place in the zone where you're thinking low to mid six figures in euros, depending on condition and distance from the water. Population-wise, you're not in a tiny village setup. The municipality is around 70,000, so you get hospitals, supermarkets, and normal services without building your week around long drives. Day to day, it's relaxed. Coffee culture is strong, the promenade is walkable, and beach time slips into your schedule instead of needing a whole plan. The main trade-off is seasonality. Summer gets busier, winter gets quieter. Wind can roll in, and some buildings are older, so insulation and heating are worth checking before you commit to the balcony view. Kavala works when you want Greece, but you also want a town that still behaves like a town. Number 9, Figueira da Foz, Portugal. Figueira da Foz is one of those places that surprises you because it's not trying to win a contest. It's a real Atlantic beach city, west of Coimbra, with a huge stretch of sand and a wide-open feel that's rare in more famous Portuguese coastal names. Lisbon and Porto get the headlines. Figueira mostly gets on with it. Home pricing here comes in around $1,760 per square meter, roughly $164 per square foot. That's a big deal for Portugal's coast, especially when you factor in that the town has enough size to keep life convenient. The municipality sits around the low 60,000s, so there's actual infrastructure behind the beach. Coimbra is close for bigger hospitals and specialist care, and you're not stuck relying on tourist-only services. What makes Figueira feel livable is that your money isn't constantly getting squeezed by hype. Groceries and day-to-day errands don't feel priced for weekenders. The beach is wide and forgiving, the kind where you can actually walk without threading through a maze of chairs. The honest downside is weather. Atlantic wind is part of the deal, and evenings can cool off fast. If you want guaranteed heat, you'll have days where you look at the sky and realize Portugal keeps its own schedule. But if your goal is a functional beach city with room to breathe, Figueira is a strong value play. Number 8, Castellón de la Plana, Spain. Castellón is for people who want the Mediterranean but don't want to pay extra because it's famous tax. It's on Spain's east coast, north of Valencia, and the beach life lives in the coastal district called Grau, with easy access to the sand without needing a resort badge to belong there. For price, you're looking at about $15.15 per square meter, around $144 per $69 per square foot. That's a level where buying starts to feel plausible again, especially compared with the Spanish coastal cities Americans tend to hear about first. Population sits around 175,000 in the city, so you get the big city basics: hospitals, public services, grocery options, and a transportation setup that doesn't punish you for needing something on a Tuesday. Lifestyle-wise, you can do beach mornings, city errands, then a quiet night without feeling like you're living inside a party strip. The drawback is, you need to choose your area thoughtfully. Some parts lean more industrial, some feel more residential, and some skew student-heavy. Summer crowds show up too, but it's a different scale than the mega hotspots. Castellón makes sense if you want the coast plus everyday practicality, with prices that don't automatically shove you into the rental-only lane. Number 7, Cartagena, Spain. Cartagena is a port city with history baked into the streets, and a coastline that's more varied than people expect. You're in the Murcia region, on the Mediterranean, with beaches and coves nearby, plus a working city core that keeps the local economy from turning into souvenir-only survival. The housing number that makes Cartagena pop is about 1,600 knives per square meter, roughly 149 per square foot. That's still a normal person can do math here number for a coastal Spain location. Population sits a bit above 200,000, so you've got real services. Hospitals and clinics aren't a long-distance project. Supermarkets are normal, and the city is large enough that you can pick a neighborhood that fits your pace. Cartagena feels best when you treat it like a base. You're buying a place where you can drive or bus out to beaches, come back to a functioning city, and keep life steady. The downside is that summer heat in this region isn't shy. You'll also notice traffic spikes in peak season, especially around the coast. And like any port city, some areas look more worn in a way that might bother you if you need everything to feel polished. If you can live with a little grit, Cartagena gives you coastal access with city-level support, and that combination is hard to find at this price point. Number 6. Roquetas de Mar, Spain. Roquetas is where beach living feels every day, without the ceremony. It's in Andalusia on the Almeria coast, with long beachfront stretches, a big promenade, and a people actually live here all year vibe that matters when you're making a move, not planning a week. Home pricing sits around $1,576 per square meter, about $146 per square foot. That's one of the reasons Americans looking for Spain should keep it on the radar. The town's population is just under 100,000, which still gives you plenty of options without shrinking your life down to a few streets. You've got healthcare services in town and more in nearby Almeria, plus the basics like groceries and day-to-day convenience that make retirement feel easy instead of logistically annoying. Roquetas also has a straightforward beach routine. Walks are simple, space is generous, and you don't feel like you have to compete to exist near the water. Your drawback is climate. This area is known for sun, but summer can run hot, and the wind can be a surprise guest. You'll also see seasonal pressure from visitors, even though it doesn't hit like the bigger Andalusian names. Roquetas fits when you want a beach town with real scale, solid services, and pricing that still feels grounded. Number 5. Burgas, Bulgaria. Burgas is a Black Sea city that feels like it's built for daily life first and postcards second. It's got parks along the sea, a long waterfront area people use year-round, and the kind of routine-friendly setup that makes living abroad feel less intimidating. Sofia gets the attention. Burgas gets you the water. For a US-friendly way to think about housing, average asking prices for two-room apartments in Burgas sit around $1,240 per square meter, which is about $115 per square foot. That's where the wait really moment lives in this list. Population is close to 200,000 in the city, so you have real infrastructure, hospitals, supermarkets, normal public services, and an airport right there. Burgas also keeps your lifestyle costs from drifting into resort mode. You'll find that eating out and everyday errands can be noticeably cheaper than Western European coastal cities, even when the beach is 10 minutes away. The trade-off is seasonality and weather. Winter shows up here. Summer brings visitors. Some buildings can be Soviet-era practical, which is great for durability, and less great for charm. Burgas makes the most sense if you want coastal Europe with one of the strongest price-to-services ratios on the list. Number 4. Reggio Calabria, Italy. Reggio Calabria is the kind of place that makes you realize how much of Italy's pricing drama is location-specific. This is the toe of the boot, facing Sicily across the Strait of Messina, with views that feel expensive even when the housing market isn't. Recent asking prices sit around $854 per square meter, about $79 per square foot, which is exactly why it makes the cut. You're talking roughly the same price per square foot as a lot of inland US markets, with the sea right there. The city's population is in the mid-100,000s, so you have hospitals, rail connections, and enough daily services that you're not living a rural life by accident. Beach time here is more local than tourist. You'll see people doing evening walks, grabbing a quick espresso, and keeping life calm. The downside is that parts of Calabria can feel underinvested compared with northern Italy. Streets and buildings vary a lot by neighborhood, and that's not a small detail when you're buying. Also, job markets are thinner, which matters if you're not retired yet. Reggio makes the most sense if your plan is stability and routine, with a coastal setting that doesn't require elite money. Number 3. Taranto, Italy. Taranto is a working coastal city in Puglia with a reputation that scares off casual buyers, which is part of why the pricing can stay surprisingly low. It sits on the Ionian Sea with water on multiple sides and a daily rhythm that feels more local than curated. Market pricing here sits around $951 per square meter, about $88 per square foot, and in many pockets it stays close to the point where a decent-sized apartment can land in the low six figures in euros. Population is around the high 100,000s, so you're not sacrificing services to get the deal. You've got hospitals, supermarkets, and the kind of city infrastructure that makes everyday life easy. Toronto's coastline feels lived in, with working areas and quieter stretches, so you choose your exact spot carefully. The beach lifestyle can be great, especially when you build routines around morning walks and simple meals, but you're not moving into a polished bubble. Environmental concerns around industry have been a long-running topic in this area, so if you're serious, you do your homework on neighborhoods and air quality, not because it's trendy, but because it's smart. Toronto fits buyers who care more about math and livability than bragging rights. Number 2. Crotone, Italy. Crotone is Calabria on the Ionian side, with clear water, strong summer beach culture, and home pricing that still looks like it belongs to another decade compared with northern Italy. It stays off the glossy Capri pitch, and that's part of the appeal. Housing pricing here sits around $1,107 per square meter, about $103 per square foot, which keeps ownership within reach for people who'd never consider buying on a more famous Italian coastline. Population is roughly in the high 50s to low 60s thousands, so you're large enough for normal services without feeling like you're living in a microtown. The beach routine is simple: sand, water, walking, and a lot less posturing than you'll find in hotspots. The trade-offs are exactly what you'd expect in a smaller southern market: fewer English-friendly systems, fewer big city conveniences, and a stronger need to be patient with paperwork. Summer brings crowds, winter gets quiet, and the airport options can be limited compared with bigger hubs. Crotone makes sense when you want Italy's coast at an entry point price, and you're okay living a little more locally. Number 1. Mazara del Vallo, Italy. Mazara del Vallo is Sicily with a working port soul. It's on the island's southwest coast, with a mix of cultures, sea-focused daily life, and a housing market that can still feel shockingly approachable for a place that's literally on the Mediterranean. Pricing here sits around $813 per square meter, about $76 per square foot, depending on the exact area and condition. That's the core reason it earns the top slot. You can still find scenarios where ownership is a low six-figure euro decision instead of a lifelong financial commitment. Population is around the low 50s thousands, so you get everyday basics, and bigger hospital options exist in larger nearby cities when needed. Mazara's beach lifestyle is more about routine than spectacle. You're not fighting for sand. You're living near it. The downside is practical. Sicily's infrastructure varies, and you need to accept that some things run slower than you're used to. Summer is lively, winter is calmer, and humidity can show up in ways you'll feel in older buildings. If you can handle that, Mazara delivers the cleanest version of the promise behind this whole video. Coastal Europe, real life and pricing that still lets you breathe. If you're picking from this list, don't just chase the cheapest number. Match the town's pace to your day-to-day life, and be honest about weather, seasonality, and how much city infrastructure you want nearby. Prices move, neighborhoods vary, and the smartest move is always to rent first if you can. But if your goal is a beach routine that doesn't come with a luxury bill attached, these 10 places keep the math realistic.